Good afternoon. This is Jill Robinson, Walker Mathews. We are kicking off the first of a 5-part series with Executive Learning Networks. We have a value system, and I've asked different of our executives to speak for a few minutes and share their thoughts around our personal value set and our values as executive learning members companies. And Walker this morning has picked trust, and so I'm very thankful to have him with us. A few things first. Walker Mathews Sr. is the president of RC Mathews Contractor. It's a third-generation led business here in Nashville, Tennessee, with over 100 employees. His grandfather founded it in 1941, and they're consistently one of the top-ranked contractors in the city. Currently, they're building on our campus at Belmont University and focused on our new Belmont University Performing Arts Center. So thank you, Walker, for being with me. I'd love for you to share your thoughts on a few things around trust. And I know that you want to start with sharing some ideas around your grandfather and share a couple of stories for us today on that.
Thank you, Jill. So I really picked trust because we're all going through these uncertain times, uncertainty about what's going to happen in the future, uncertainty about our health and our family members. And really what that calls me to is to really dig deep into both my faith and how we're approaching these uncertain times in the workforce. And obviously I grew up in the construction business, and it's been ingrained in my psyche or my DNA ever since the sand pile in our front yard. Who has sand piles in their front yard to build dams and bridges? And one of the stories of my growing up that really stuck with me was my grandfather telling me the story of one day we were working at a school, and he had hired one of the teachers during the summer to work on the school. And at the end of the summer, he asked the teacher, what did he learn about the construction business? And the teacher told him, he said, what I learned about the construction business is that everything you do is based upon trust. The guy that lays out the footing, they trust that he was given the correct information. And then the guy that pours the footing trusts that the guy laid it out correctly. And the mason that puts the block there trusts that he's got this line correct. And each person that follows in terms of building the building has to trust and build upon the person before to have done their work correctly and properly. And so this whole concept of our whole business being based on trust just has really permeated everything I look at. So for us, we're a Nashville-based contractor, and all of our work is done in Nashville, Tennessee. And really what that means for us is that our reputation follows us from project to project. So we've got to be able to deliver on that trust that the clients place in us for their building, and then that trust in turn can be transmitted to the next project. So just to be able to say that trust is something that's very important to me. I would say particularly during these times, trust is an important thing from a personal standpoint, because the more uncertain it gets, and whether we're facing a serious illness or a serious illness of a family member, it really puts us face to face with our faith. And our faith for me is based upon a trust in God, and a trust in God's promises to us that this world is not all there is, and that, we're put on this place to make it a better world for other people. So, I would say that ultimately, from a personal standpoint, I've got to have everything based upon an inner trust in God and God's promises. And then everything I do from a business standpoint is based upon, trusting the clients and partners that we work with, to do their job. And then that in turn allows us to kind of move forward. So that's just a little bit about a trust philosophy, and we can get off into a few tangents as well.
Yeah. Now, what would you say, like if you were working with a new kind of member of ELN, maybe they've just recently joined and they're looking for 1 or 2 tips to immediately apply in the workplace around how to build trust for their teams? Like what are some things that maybe you've done in the past or one or two tips that you could, give them on, oh, well, here's some ideas, that you might try with your organization.
So what I would say is that trust is a very, very fragile thing. It takes years to build it day by day by day. And you can drop it and break it and lose it all with one act or one day. And so if you almost have to have this long-term perspective about things, almost generationally, so to speak, about what you stand for, what your values are. I just think of recently, we had a client that subcontractor we worked with for a long time. One bad apple in that who was, sort of improperly coding some work, really could have broken the trust for that entire relationship to that client. So it was interesting that one individual at that company could have broken the trust that we had built for years with that company. And so what happens is that knowing how precious, how fragile that is, that idea of trust really needs to be sort of permeated through each of your employees and how important that is. One of the sayings that we have at our company would be, you don't do anything that you wouldn't want printed on the front page of the newspaper. In other words, you've got to approach everything you do with an openness and an honesty, because what happens is in the long run, any short-term gain is never worth it for what you're able to build over time and over generations. Because I promise you could lose it all in a day, and that's something that you want to sort of protect because it is your most valuable asset. In fact, it's your only asset, that you're from your own personal integrity or the integrity of your business.
Well, I love how passionate you are. I know that, right off the bat, you're like, this is my word. I want this word, of the ones that I sent, you're like, this one's totally going to be me. So, and your company. And it's really great to just see the generations of sort of passing that down from, one to the next. What are any last minute, tips or thoughts that you want to share with folks during this time of COVID, or, around trust, anything before we move on to the next?
Sure. So the two thoughts that come to my mind are, one is that, being a leader means that people are going to be looking up to you and that they're going to trust in your leadership. They're going to trust that you're doing the right thing. And I guess to the extent that if you're ultimately have a strong foundation in faith, that you can trust in God for, everything that you face in life, that you can be a trusted leader to help guide your people through these uncertain times, and know that, challenges and change are the things that sort of the crucible process that make us better. And so to some extent, I've told our company, in fact, I told our company in February, I said, okay, guys, we're as ready as we can possibly be for a recession. We're ready for it. Unfortunately, I didn't realize it was going to happen in March.
Yeah.
But I feel like that, we've prepared ourselves by aligning ourselves with the types of people that we want to work with, the clients that we want to serve, and sort of getting our own internal houses in order to be ready for when the storms come. So thank you for inviting me to do this. We cherish the relationship that we've been able to build through our service to Belmont University. And thank you for allowing me to talk about trust.
Perfect. You did an excellent job. Thank you, Walker.
Thank you.